A long time ago, the Pope, not our nice Pope, but a long ago Pope, decreed that all Jews must leave Italy or convert. Yeah. So it was decided that there would be a debate to decide what would happen. And the Jewish community picked the oldest and wisest rabbi to debate with the Pope. And so they met. They sat at a table across from each other. No words were spoken. The Pope raised 3 fingers. The rabbi raised 1 finger. The Pope waved his finger around his head. The rabbi pointed to the ground. The Pope presented a communion wafer and a wine chalice. And the rabbi presented an apple. And then they left. So the Pope went back to the cardinals and they're all, what happened? What happened? The Pope said, oh, it was so powerful. It was so deep. I raised 3 fingers to represent the Trinity. And the rabbi showed 1 finger to show that God is common to us all. I waved my finger around my head to show that God is all around us, but the rabbi pointed to the ground to show that God is right here with us. And I presented the wafer and the wine to show absolution of all of our sins. And the rabbi presented the apple as original sin. It was so powerful. Meanwhile, the rabbi is with his students, and they're like, well, Rabbi, what happened? And he said, well, the Pope gave us 3 days to get out, and I flipped him off. The Pope said, clear the country of Jews, and I said, we're staying right here. And then he took out his lunch, and I took out mine. This weekend has been a wonderful example of religious at-one-ment. So first, we just finished Yom Kippur, the holiest of days on the Jewish calendar. Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement. Briefly, 10 plus days ago, we celebrated Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. And for 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Jews all over the world move into a time called the Days of Reflection and Remembrance. It's a time when we review our year. We think back on moments we might have missed the mark. We are then called by God to then make amends to those we have hurt or wronged, we have misunderstood or mistreated, either intentionally or unintentionally. Unlike confession, we don't get let off the hook. We need to go and see them. It's a pretty intense holiday. There's fasting, there's praying, and there's singing of some of the most magnificent and heart-wrenching music. And for those of you who arrived early, you got to hear my dad singing. We have these recordings of him from 1975 that are just amazing and tremendous. So the same weekend, Muslims all over the world are celebrating Eid al-Adha. I worked really hard on this. Eid al-Adha. And this holiday takes place at the end of the Hajj, which is the pilgrimage to Mecca. And it's as far from fasting and atoning as you can get. It's festival, it's 3 days where they are celebrating the prophet Abraham. Yes, the same Abraham. So it's the same Abraham, the one who listened to the voice of God, who went up on the mountain to kill his son Isaac because God told him to, and then God stops him at the last minute saying, thanks, just checking, making sure that you were paying attention. And similarly, it's interesting, in the Quran and in the Hebrew Bible, there are a lot of the same stories. At-One-Ment, oneness. So they're celebrating this man in the story, and it's an honoring of Abraham's total surrender and willingness to follow Allah in all of its mysterious ways. Eid al-Adha is celebrated with a great feast. Meat is cooked and it's shared between one's family, one's friends, and the poor in your community. And it symbolizes the recognition that all good comes from Allah and that good is shared by those who have willing and obedient hearts. Also this past weekend, for those walking the Hindu path, they were celebrating Dasara, which is a royal festival celebrating victory of truth over evil. There's a great legend filled with a lot of names that, out of respect, I'm not even going to attempt because I know better. But it's the story of a goddess who slays a demon, And it's a celebration that is 414 years old, celebrating the triumph of truth over evil. And it's celebrated differently even within India and all around the world. I researched this and I got overwhelmed. I started drowning. There's so much on just this holiday alone that I thought, I'm just going to overview. There it is. There are gatherings. They honor a sacred tree. There's worship. There's food. There's music. There's flowers. It's festive. And then if that weren't enough, there's one more. Catholics are celebrating Brother Francesco. Today is St. Francis's Day. And this is usually celebrated by animal blessings at churches and other ways to celebrate the life of Brother Francesco. So all of this to say, as always, we're all climbing the same mountain. These kinds of multi-holiday moments happen all year long. There's some great interfaith celebration calendars. If you Google interfaith holidays, there's tons of calendars. And it's amazing how many celebrations are happening all year long. And it's honoring those who've come before us. It's gathering for one reason or another. It's celebrating. It's discovery of how one we are. And so whether it's feasting or fasting or dancing or sacrificing or celebrating or atoning, each path is no more or less important than the other. And I love how Ram Dass puts it. Ram Dass says, we are all just walking each other home. Look at that happy picture. Happy folks. So Neil Donald Walsh also speaks to this in his book, Friendship with God. He's the one who wrote Conversations with God. And so he started with conversations and then he moved into friendship. And he said this, and I believe this is the message that he receives from Spirit. For this is the new gospel. There is no master race. There is no greatest nation. There is no one true religion. There is no inherently perfect philosophy. There is no always right political party, morally supreme economic system, or one and only way to heaven. Erase those ideas from your memory. Eliminate them from your experience. Eradicate them from your culture. For these are the thoughts of division and separation, and you have killed each other over these thoughts. Only the truth I give you here will save you. We are one. Carry this message far and wide, across oceans and over continents, around the corner and around the world. Wow. And yet, if we are to believe the media, the news media, some news outlets more than others that aren't really news, and I won't speak their name, there is, according to them, there's no connection between any of us. There are evil killers over there who are bent on our destruction. There are those people over there dying from a disease. There are sinners of the same gender who want to get married. There's that group of folks in Missouri who are just causing trouble. There are Republicans, there are Democrats, there's us, there's them, and there's a ton of the other. And anyone who thinks that we are one is a naive Pollyanna who's out of touch with reality. I have a news flash of my own for those who think this way. It's pretty simple. When we get down to the bare bones, I choose Pollyanna every time. Because that's the truth of who we are. Right there. And there's a whole other element to this oneness idea, letting go of the spiritual aspect of it completely, if that's too fluffy. There's a scientific one. We heard in the sacred reading about Jill Bolte Taylor. This is her. That's an actual brain. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about her. She wrote this book, My Stroke of Insight. She's a brain scientist, brilliant human being, who had a stroke and chronicled her stroke as it was happening to her. She has a TED Talk that's just phenomenal, and the book I highly recommend. And so the most powerful thing, as she was recognizing she was losing her faculties minute by minute, where she knew she had to call 911 but didn't know what a phone was, made it to the phone and didn't know what numbers were, like she was losing, and then she was able to hold that information somewhere to write this book. But what she discovered was during the stroke, as she moved from her left to her right hemisphere of her brain, she experienced total and complete oneness with everything, all life, the whole world. As the stroke was happening, she describes it like this. She said, "As the language centers in my left hemisphere grew increasingly silent, and I became detached from the memories of my life, I was comforted by an expanding sense of grace. My consciousness soared into an all-knowingness, a being at one with the universe. It felt like the good road home." She describes the sensation of losing her understanding of separation. Not just losing the sense of separation, losing her understanding of separation. That she was becoming more fluid. She was blending in with all space and energy that was around her. True, total at-one-ment. And as we heard in the sacred reading, she was then challenged to try to fit this enormous sensation of oneness into the daily life of appearance of separation. This has to sound familiar for some of us. Have you ever gone on a meditation retreat or on an extended vacation unplugged from your phone and the internet? Or had a profoundly deep spiritual encounter that made it difficult to return to your daily life? I believe that many, if not all of us, have had at least one of these experiences. I've been really blessed with several. My time in the Grand Canyon, the recent time in Hawaii, my ordination and graduation from seminary. When we have a moment like this, we experience something that I call re-entry, where we have to come back, where we have to come back into the world. We have to go back to work on Monday. We have to do laundry. We have to pay bills. We have to cook dinner. It's so challenging. And yet, what I'm learning more about At-One-Ment as I'm going along is that it's not really a return because we didn't really go anywhere. To truly find this piece of At-One-Ment is to be at one with all the moments equally. To not separate them as better or worse, or sacred versus regular. Yes, I know it's a stretch to make laundry sacred, but we can do it. But to always be present where we are. So when we're in this holy, deep, profound experience, it's not, okay, now I have to end that and go back to work. Carry that. Make work a deeply profound spiritual experience. Bring it all together. This is how we find wholeness within ourselves. It's how we create integrity in our daily lives. And I love the word integrity, so I looked it up. And it's a sense of wholeness, soundness, entire, and this word, undiminished. When we are at one-ment with ourselves in any moment, we are whole, we are sound, and we are undiminished. That's powerful. Are you feeling that? I hope, because I'm feeling it. Stone and I are feeling it. So how do we get there? There are a few ways. Increasing our awareness, decreasing our attachment to everything, expressing gratitude, and simply learning how to stay present. These are all good starts. I will say, though, that to me, I think first big step, I feel it, is forgiveness. Making amends. Which brings us back to Yom Kippur. It's not just about saying, look, I'm really sorry. Which is nice. Sometimes that's all we need to hear. Sometimes we want to hear, I'm sorry. It's deeper than that, though. It's about self-reflection. It's about looking at ourselves and saying, where did I speak or act less than kindly? And not just to others. Where did I speak or act less than kindly to myself? How did I talk to myself? How do I treat myself? This is the work, and it is non-stop. Believe me. For those of you who are on Facebook, you saw me have a moment yesterday. It's continuing, ongoing forgiveness, recognition, self-reflection, recalibration of who we are. There's an amazing Native American who has been sitting in jail for a long, long time, named Leonard Peltier. And he wrote a beautiful book of poetry. He's written several, I think, actually. But from the prison writings, My Life is My Sundance, he wrote, "Let us forgive the worst among us, because the worst is in ourselves. The worst lives in each of us, along with the best. Let us forgive the worst in each of us and all of us, so that the best in each of us and all of us may be free." And if he can say it, we can do it. So we are at one-ment with others. All others. Already. We can choose to be at one-ment with ourselves. We are always at one with Spirit, or God, universe, nature, life, love, allness, Allah, Buddha, whatever. We're always at one with that. So I'm going to close today. All right, so Spirit has fun with me sometimes. And this week, I kept getting this little tap going, watch The Matrix. Watch The Matrix. And I'm like, I have to write a talk. Watch The Matrix. I'm like, there is nothing in The Matrix for me. So Friday night I surrendered, and I watched The Matrix. And I wasn't clear what I was going to get. So I just thought, well, maybe God just wants me to have a night off and enjoy a movie. Yeah, right. So I sat back and I watched The Matrix. And it wasn't until we got to the end that I realized the messages I needed to get. Two ideas became very obvious. And I only watched the first one. For those of you who have seen it, the first one is just the introduction to the whole story. But at the end of the first one, Neo and Agent Smith are in the subway and they're going up against each other, and Agent Smith shoots Neo and Trinity tells him she loves him, and so he wakes back up, and then he goes after Agent Smith and he becomes the one. And he conquers Agent Smith by literally, energetically entering into Agent Smith and exploding him into light. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, sorry. Just forget all that. So the only way that Neo eventually conquers his perceived enemy, Agent Smith, is to become one with him. He has to become one with him in order to conquer him. He tries obstinance, he tries guns, he tries physical battle, and the only thing that finally works is when he literally becomes one with him, goes inside, makes room, and goes, and he explodes into light. It's pretty spectacular. And so what I got from that, and I'm speaking for myself here, is that whether the perceived enemy that I have is outside of me, or whether that perceived enemy is gaining power from within me, Once I integrate the energy, I am then able to become one with it. From that point, I can honor the gift of whatever this perceived enemy is bringing to me. And I can more deeply connect with my own power. And then I become the one for myself. Just like Neo. I'm hoping to get a really cool coat, too, eventually. And the other piece is the very ending of the first Matrix, where the screen goes dark and we hear Neo talking. And he is talking directly to the agents. He's talking directly to those who would like to keep us from At-One-Ment, those who would like to keep us unconscious. I like to think that he's talking to some of the news media outlets. There are those who want to keep us asleep and unaware of what's really happening, and to keep us from connecting with each other and finding At-One-Ment. And so Neo tells them this. He says, I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you. And I thought, thanks, God, for letting me watch The Matrix. And with that in mind, let's pray. So we take a breath. Feeling that breath move within our entire being. Knowing that there are people everywhere around the world also taking a breath. If we cannot find that oneness with each other politically, religiously, or any other way, we can find oneness with each other through that experience. We all breathe. And so today and this weekend, as those of the Jewish faith, Hindu, Muslims all over the world, Catholics, and so many others who are celebrating a myriad of holidays. Self-reflection, festival, fasting. What I know is truly, regardless of all the appearances, we are one. We all live on this planet. We all want something. And many are willing to go to great lengths to get that thing. And so it is for us, the peacemakers, the peace carriers, to shine light in the darkness, to share wisdom where there is ignorance, to demonstrate patience where all we see is urgency, and to show compassion when what the world is telling us is to feel anything but. We change things, one at a time, through our connection with Spirit, with ourselves, with each other, through oneness. Every day is the day of At-One-Ment. And so I give thanks for that reminder. for myself, for others, for those who've reached out in prayer, for those who haven't. When we become the one, we become one with all. So grateful for this. Amen. Ashe.